Happy Monday, happy Monday, everyone. My name is Keiara Gladney, and I am the host of Mask Off a Charity Movement podcast. I am so excited for another episode. I know I say that every week, but I feel the inspiration of God when I record and prepare to record these podcasts. If you are listening to this, that means that yesterday was Mother's Day. So happy belated Mother's Day to you, whether you are a biological mother, whether you are a spiritual mother, whether you are a mentor to some youth or children or young adults, whether you are someone that others regard as being wise and being someone that is dependable. I want to say happy Mother's Day to you. There is a level of duality with holidays such as Mother's Day, because for some people you are excited and happy to be appreciated on this day if you are a mother. As well as appreciating those around you who have impacted you greatly. On the other hand, you have individuals who are mourning, who are remembering the experiences, the times, the sweet memories of their loved ones that they held dear and hold dear, but can no longer touch them and reach them with the physical touch. And those individuals I am definitely praying for, as well as women who, like myself, can smile on yesterday as a mother of children that you can see running around, but also feel that little pang of sadness because of the child that you never got to meet, or the ones that you did meet, but you didn't get to keep here in this physical realm. I do want to tell you that my thoughts, my prayers are with you, and I know that God is a burden bearer. I know it for myself. I have experienced his goodness. I've experienced his ability to hold me and sustain me. So I know that God will do the same thing for you. As we go into our episode for today, as you saw in the title, I am going to talk about some things that my mother taught me. And so when I say things that my mother taught me, I am not simply talking about the lessons that she sat me down and informed me of in my childhood or adolescence or teenagers or my early adult years. I am also talking about the experiences, the lessons that I have learned through seeing her experiences and learning things as I grow older about myself, about my relationship with God, my relationship with my mother, which yields how I would like to show up now and in the future. Okay. So this topic has really been on my heart for a while, because within Charity Movement, it started before, like right before the pandemic, because I realized that there were women and families enduring different stages of life that were traumatic, but not really knowing how to navigate through those seasons without carrying the residue of those seasons and never really being able to move in victory. And so when I experienced postpartum depression, when I experienced some pregnancy loss, when I experienced really having some breakdowns in the familiar relationship, especially between mother and daughter, and just transitions of life, I've learned that the worst thing that I can do is to suppress it and act like those feelings, those experiences don't exist. But my duty is to cast all of those cares upon the Lord, for he cares for me, and to utilize the tools that I've acquired from God, from his word, as well as through counseling and therapy that will help for me to have direct confrontation and dialogue about those things so that I could come to some form of resolution. And so Charity Movement was birthed. This podcast was birthed out of a woman that wanted to be able to express all of the feelings, all of the emotions, all of the experiences that I had, without fear of being silenced or suppressed or being denied the space to be honest. Okay. So I think about this topic because as I go into having just celebrated Mother's Day, I think about the way that my mom, who is yet alive and well, praise God, who is in my life, the things that she has endured, the things that she has undergone that has produced the woman that she is, but has also helped to produce the woman that I am. So my mother is not one that wants to be on a podcast like this. But my mom is someone who is very honest and transparent about a lot of things, but there are other things that my mom probably will never talk about because it is just something that she's not comfortable with, which I understand and validate her experience as well. But my mom is a beautiful woman who had to overcome a lot of barriers, a lot of experiences that could have torn her apart and left her destitute, but she decided to move forward and be resilient. So I was raised by a resilient woman who really beat all the odds that were stacked against her as a single mother of 3 before she met my dad. And my dad and my mom had me, and my dad immediately said that all of my mom's children were his children as well, and they became a couple, and my siblings and I were just family. I mean, obviously, I didn't know until I was a teenager because my siblings and I look exactly alike, and my brother looks like my dad, and it just was normal. So I think about it because my mom could have shut off the possibility of love because of some of the traumatic experiences that she had, but she allowed herself to love and to grow and to be with someone and to allow God to be in the journey. And so throughout my life, my mom and I had a very complex relationship, okay? We did not like one another, but we loved one another. My mom and I got into arguments all the time because we just clashed. If anybody knows me personally, you know that I am a loving, energetic, but very honest person that can be pretty confrontational if need be, but I really don't hold it in. If there's a question that I have, most of the time I ask it. I've gotten a lot better now. I really just am observant more than I ask questions and inquire and all of those things. Sometimes that doesn't work in my favor, especially when I was younger and I was talking to my parents. And so my mom and I really had an interesting relationship, to say the least, but I did not enjoy spending a lot of time with my mom. And I don't think she enjoyed spending time with me that much either. And I didn't learn until I got older, until the pandemic, when I was going through therapy because I was diagnosed with postpartum depression after having my first child, and I just could not get to any level of normalcy. And during that time, I began to talk to my mom and my dad about just things that were happening in my mind, things that were happening in my life, and what postpartum depression looked like for me. And my dad just blurted out, that had to be what your mom had with you. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And that's when it came up that my mom really was scared to have additional children. My mom just had gone through some traumatic things with my 3 siblings, and she just didn't want to try again. But when she was pregnant, she just really had to decide if she was going to have me because she was just traumatized. And as a woman, I can only imagine having that fight in your mind because you love your spouse, you love the idea of family, but you are scared to have another child because you just don't know. You just have so many what ifs. And my mom had this kind of detached feel from me as an infant, and my dad kind of said that my mom would just be out of it. She just didn't know how to connect at first, and eventually she did, but it was just hard for her. And my sister, who was 13 years older than me, she kind of took a help and helped me a lot as a child. And, I think a lot of times parents don't see how much, even as a child, the relationship dynamic that you have with the child as an infant, a toddler, an adolescent, a preteen, and a teenager, it reflects very greatly on the life, the confidence, the will, the resilience of that child as they grow older. And so I could feel I could never pinpoint the name of it, but I could feel that type of rejection. Even though my mom took care of me, even though she did my hair, even though she made sure I was clean, even though she made sure I had really nice clothes, even though through all of these things, I could still feel like there was a level of division between myself and my mother. And it never came out until I was 16 what it was. And my mom was just kind of like, I don't even know how to talk to you. I don't even know how to have a relationship with you. And we just went back and forth. And I realized as I got older, just fast forwarding to when I was going to therapy, having conversations with my mom and dad about postpartum depression and different experiences in my life, I realized that my mom was struggling, but she was struggling at a time where they didn't have a name for it. They didn't have, those levels of emotional supports to support my mom at that time. They didn't have a lot of people in church that understood trauma and knew how to build plans to address the experiences, to validate the experiences and give solutions. My mom didn't have that. And so my mom had to respond the only way she could, which was to suppress the feeling and still be a parent. And I think about that now as a mother, and I understand. I understand how when you are a woman, you bring a lot of your experiences into being a mother. You don't just delete all of the experiences that you've had, all of the traumas that you've experienced, and just come into motherhood with a clean slate after that baby comes out and it says, it's a boy or it's a girl. You carry all of those things. And what I had to realize was I learned from my mother that I could not suppress what I feel because it was real. I could not sit in the thing and not do anything to get out of it. I learned from my mother that if I don't ask for help, I cannot expect someone to just rescue me. And I learned that because we had so many conversations when I had my first child, and so many more when I had my second, and so many more when we lost our child in 2020. Just about all the emotions you feel in being a mother. All the times that you sit racking your brain thinking if you're making the right decision, and how it was not easy, and it never is easy, because every time you think you have a grasp on one stage of your child's experience and their development, they reach a new stage and then you're lost once again. And so I really had to embrace the fact that my mom was not just my mom, but she was a woman. And she wasn't just a woman, but she was a woman who had to have the grace to make mistakes. Now, I'm not talking about negligence. My mom was not negligent or any of the sort, but my mom just had learning curves as a parent and as a woman, that through her experiences, it was hard in certain stages of my life, especially as a teenager. I remember being 16, well, I was 15, and this happened to my older sister as well. But I was 15 and I had gotten a purity ring because the Lord had kind of been speaking to me about the importance of keeping myself until marriage. Not just for a man, not for a man at all, but because there's a level of submission that you have when you say to God, I am going to submit my will, my emotion, my physical responses, all of that to you, because I want you to be the head of my life. I want you to be my focus. And so I signified that by getting a purity ring. Okay. And so from the time I was 15 and a half to the road to 16, my mom turned into an FBI agent. There was no text, no message, no Facebook status, no nothing that I could have, post, or hide without my mother finding. And sis was like, you are not going to be pregnant on my watch. You are not going to ruin your life like that on my watch. I dare you. I'll snatch you up and all this stuff. And it hit me that my mom had her first child at 16. And that my mom worked so hard to ensure that her children would not make the same choices as she did. And so even though I felt like it was just overly policing when she should kind of like know our character, at the end of the day, my mom wanted to make sure that I had a fighting chance to live a life that not just she would be proud of, but that I would be proud of, because she knew my goals in life. She knew what God had placed in my heart to achieve. And she knew that having a child at such a young age would make that not impossible, because nothing is impossible with God, but it would make it so difficult. She just understood. And so she pushed. So one of the things she taught me was that sometimes in motherhood, you have the right intention, but sometimes it comes out the wrong way because it's the wrong method. And so for me, in my mind, I'm like, well, maybe if we just had more open dialogue about educating all of these things, maybe, a child wouldn't sneak around or any of those things. But my mom didn't think that way. My mom just said, I have to make sure that I do everything in my power to prevent her from making this mistake or this choice. And I really learned to see my mom in a different light, because when I saw her in a different light with a different perspective, I began to give my mom a lot more grace. I think for some years it was hard for me to look at my mom as a woman, as a human being that was capable of even making mistakes, because she was my mom. And the danger of social media and different shows is because they present parents who are without fail. They present parenthood as if there's a manual where you make really, really good decisions and your children are the problem. And I had a very skewed view of my mom and her experiences. And even not saying that like all of the things that happened or experiences were right, but there are times in my life, times in my teenage years, where I didn't give my mom grace at all, because in a sense I didn't feel like she deserved it because she was the parent. But as a parent now, I understand there is no instructional manual. There's the word of God, very amazing. His word is true. But when emotions are high and things are said, mistakes occur. And you have to know how to resolve those conflicts. And so all of that was a journey. And I'm glad that my mom and I are in a much better place than what we were, because I'm able to look at her in womanhood in a totally different light. So I wanted to share things that my mom taught me, because I think that all of us, as we get older, we realize if our mothers are with us or not. We realize that I start to look at my mom differently from just being a mother. And like I said, looking at her as a woman. And I got to see my mom because my mom in my college years got very ill. And her life just completely transformed and shifted. But when I was younger, I remember my mom always having her hair done. So either she did it herself, if she didn't have money to do it or to get it done at the salon, my mom did her hair herself. She dyed her own hair, she permed her own hair, she pressed her own hair, she curled her own hair, she gave herself ponytails, all the things. And so I learned from my mom that having money or not having money is no excuse. There's no excuse of why you cannot look your best at any moment. Okay. So my mom taught me how to do my own hair. It's like over Mother's Day weekend, I was just not feeling it. I was not gonna text or call a hairstylist to get my hair done or do anything because I just wasn't feeling it. I feel my own level of duality because I am appreciating being a mother for Mother's Day, but my dad is in the hospital, really fighting for his health. And so I can't really feel as best as I want to because I am thinking of that. And this was just a pretty difficult couple weeks. And so I feel that. And so I didn't want to do anything. But when Saturday came around, I was like, oh, I got to do my hair. I got to do something to my hair. I have to look presentable. Okay. On Sunday, I got to look presentable for the saints. For myself, I got to look like something. And so I did my own hair. So my mom taught me how to do my own hair. She said, it's no excuse. It's no excuse for you to go outside. In the words of my dad and my mom, looking like a tackhead. You don't have no excuse. Don't go out there like that. Or, you're not going to represent me in that type of light. There you go. Well, my mom also taught me how to do my own nails because we could not go out all the time and get our hair and our nails done. My household survived off of my dad. My mom was a homemaker. And when I was about in the 3rd or 4th grade, my dad had to retire from his job because he was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. And so then we had to depend on a portion of his pension and Social Security. And it was very tight. It was very hard, but my mom taught us and my dad taught us that for some of these things, you got to do it yourself. Now, on special occasions, my mom went to get her hair done, her nails done, things like that. But my mom taught herself how to do her nails. My mom taught herself how to paint her toes. My mom taught herself how to do her hair instead of calling people or doing the bartering system. My mom was doing a bartering system in the 80s and the 90s, okay? If you do my hair, I'm gonna watch your kids. My mom was resourceful. She was very much and she very much is a resourceful woman. So doing my own hair, doing my own nails, making sure I can do something to my face, like makeup. My mom really didn't do makeup. I really kind of learned and dabbled into makeup by myself, just watching YouTube videos. But my mom didn't really wear that much makeup. She did her like brows, she did some eyelash, some mascara and some lip gloss, and that was it. My mom taught me how to cook, and obviously to clean. Saturday morning, everybody knows Saturday morning, you hear some loud gospel music. For us, Order My Steps in Your Word, or Donnie McClurkin, Speak to My Heart, okay? And you knew by the smell of bleach and ammonia that it was time to get on up and do something, or you was gonna get hit with that broom. Amen. Praise God. My mom taught me, not really in word, but also in her experiences, to never stop dreaming. So my mom, I remember throughout our lives, my mom wanted to be a police officer, and she just thought that she would be a really good police officer. And I did too, and my siblings did too, but my mom never did it. She never went through the process of learning what it could be, what could be the demand, what's the process for the academy, because she just thought that because she had 4 children, 2 of which had different levels of cognitive or emotional impairment, that was her priority and she couldn't do anything else. And so for me, it taught me to, number one, if God has given me a dream, a vision of what I can become, there is no barrier that is high enough that could deter me from doing what God has called me to do, and the purpose, profession, interest that he has given for me to accomplish. And so I have to remember that my mom also taught me to, in agreement with what I just said, do what I dream of. So my mom, through different stages of life, because my mom had my first sibling at 16, my mom never finished her education. And so thus she couldn't go to the police academy. And my mom also wanted to be a special education advocate. And so, like I said, 2 of my siblings had levels of impairment, and she would go to meetings with them, advocating for them, and then other people in my siblings' schools would ask her to come into meetings with them and speak up for them based on the laws that she knew of and she would research. My mom could have become a certified special education advocate, but she was like, no, I can't do that. I don't have what it takes. I don't speak eloquently enough. And that really hit me because my mom was good at so many things. She is good at so many things. My mother is good at so many things. But I think that there was a level of fear of actually achieving what she set out to do. And that held her back in some areas. And I see or have seen areas of that in me. Like, I don't even want to take a chance at applying for this or starting this project or doing this for fear, not that I'll fail, but fear that I actually might get what I set out to accomplish. And that is an area that God really showed me that he needed for me to pay attention to and do some work in. And when I asked, like, what is that from? Where is that? Where does it originate? And I remember these situations with my mom, like, girl, you're good at everything. You're good at cooking. You're good at cleaning. You're good at, doing hair. You're good at all these things. But my mom just did not think that it was going to be her. Like, it was her time. The spotlight was on her. And so I think that is why when I accomplished something, or when I had that debate with Monica Conyers at the age of 12, and it became national and international news, and I started getting awards for it, that she was so proud, because she said that, well, if I don't get those awards, if I don't get the accolades, and even when I graduated from high school, then I graduated from college, and then I received my master's degree, and my eldest sister, Jennifer, did the same thing. She said, well, at least I can say that my children accomplish these things, because if they achieved it, it feels like I did too. And that really hit me, because while I appreciate all the things that my children will accomplish, I'm going to be the front runner for my children. They're going to see me win so they can see the path of how they can win. But I love the fact that my mom said, even if I don't get it, I'm going to push my children so that they can get it. Isn't that the essence of motherhood? Ensuring that even if we feel the hardships and the pain, our duty is to ensure that our children don't feel it too. And so I think about a lot of the experiences that my mom had, and I'm thankful that she was as territorial protective as she was and is, because it ensured that I did not experience the same levels of trauma in relationship and things of that nature that she endured. Because looking at my life now, I am grateful that she was strict and my dad was strict. I am grateful that they didn't let me do any and everything. I am grateful that they were very careful in discerning who I should and should not be around, even if they were family. My parents were very careful, and that is something else that I learned from my mother. You need to be careful, even around people who say that they're family, because everybody is not in their right mind. Everyone does not look at innocence and childhood in the same way. And so you have to be very discerning of who you're around, the company that you keep, to ensure that these babies, our children, are safe. And so that is something that my mom also taught me. My mom taught me to be proud of my accomplishments. Like I said, whenever I won an award, when I was on the news when I was 12, I was scared because I just knew I was getting a whooping that day, because I felt like I was going back and forth defending the law, the rules, civility. But I knew my mom at first was going to be like, I knew you was telling somebody off, you're going to get in trouble because you were telling these people off. And that's exactly what she said when I got in that car after the report was on Channel 2 News. I knew she was going to be like, I can't believe you told somebody off. You told a woman off. I can't believe she's a councilwoman. How can you disrespect your elders? But then my godfather who was at the time Detroit news reporter Charlie LaDuff, and he walked up to my mom's car and was like, hi, are you Keiara Bell's mother? And she said, yes, I am. And he said, what's your name? She said, Marsha. And he told her who he was and what I did and how he was just very proud. And there would probably be other reporters coming to talk to me and things like that. And that's when my mom's tune changed, because I just knew I was getting in trouble when I got home. And then when I got home, she showed my dad, and my dad was like, oh my gosh, Keiara, you really did all that? And I was like, yeah, that was me. And then my mom tried to change her tune. But anyway, my mom was proud because she seen parts of me that was always born to be a leader. But when she saw it in that recording, she was like, wow, this is not just my little girl, Keiara. This is a preteen that is growing up right before my eyes. And she has a voice, a powerful voice that is saying something, that is doing something to change the environment around her. And so that is something that I learned from my mom. I also learned the spirit of servitude. Even now I'm thinking about it, like my mom and my dad did everything, like the usher board president. My mom ran a lot of the fundraisers, fish to raise money for our church and other things. My mom and dad planned trips for the church for fundraisers. My mom and my dad used to take us to the church to clean the church and, to do things and to help out and to support the youth and all of these things. But it was the heart of servitude. It was preferring someone else over yourself. It was inconveniencing your own self to ensure that other people were supported and nurtured and loved, and they were shown love openly. And so I think about even my mom going over to the mothers of our church's home and doing their hair and making sure that they were okay and changing out their clothes and all of these things. My parents taught us, my mom taught us to serve. Before you start complaining about anything else, before you go up in somebody's church expecting anything, your job is to go in and serve. And this is why it is natural for me in the stage that I am in of being a pastor's wife to go in the kitchen and put on an apron and cook breakfast for the saints. It is natural for me to love on the children at our church and want to mentor them and help them and support them. It's because my mom built that in me. My mom built a level of resilience and servitude in me to where I want to see people served well. I want to see people loved on. I want to see people feel appreciated and encouraged when they leave my presence. And so that is something that my parents definitely raised us to do, which is serve, because Jesus did not come to be served, but he came to serve. And so that is like a motto that we had in our home growing up. Resilience is another area. And I talked about it in the beginning with my mom and how she married my dad and they lived and live happily ever after together, like two little kids together. And um my parents taught us to be resilient. My parents taught us that even when you experience different things in your life, you cannot let it stop. You have to put it all into perspective so that you can move forward. And my parents taught me that, and I take it every day and run with it. Even when I endure hard trials, even when I go through different traumatic experiences, I cannot afford to let it stop me. It might pause me, but it won't stop me. And that is what helps me as an adult. That's what helps me as a professional. That is also what helps me as a mother. Okay. One of the other things that my mom taught me was the importance of dealing and addressing the trauma or traumas that I've experienced and the importance of therapy. And so, as I stated, during the pandemic, I started therapy because after having my first child, I realized that I was going into a very dark space and I was going through suicide ideation and I just was not happy. I didn't want to be here anymore. I just could not see life getting any better than what I felt in those moments. And instead of sitting and suppressing the thoughts, because I gotten so depressed that I could not fix my mouth or my thoughts to even try to pray. And my husband at that time was praying for me. And I started going to a therapist, a spirit-filled believing therapist that gave me feedback, gave me tools to use in order for me to fight, not just in the spirit, but to fight for my mind to be captured so that I could focus on what is real. And so when I think about that, like I said with my mom, she didn't know what postpartum depression was, but I know she experienced it and she did not know what it felt like to lose a child in the womb. And so when I experienced that, my mom did the best she could to help me navigate through that process. But there's only so much you know, especially if you haven't endured it. And so I just was kind of lost. And I had to learn that me going to therapy did not take anything away from my ability to be a woman, a wife, a mother, a believer, but it helped me to understand how God could be with me in the thing because my problems had me thinking that God was nowhere around and I was going through it all by myself. But therapy helped me understand that God was always there all along. And in some of these instances, health was the focus. It was like, it wasn't God's fault at all. In those seasons, therapy, addressing past traumas was essential to growth and development. I also learned with my mom that there is an importance in learning how to communicate. It is a such thing as miscommunication, as we all probably know. There's a such thing as unfruitful communication, which means that you probably shouldn't say anything. But healthy, effective communication is when you listen to understand, you respond in a way that is healthy, positive, and a willingness to shift and adjust as needed when appropriate, all of those things. But it is so important to learn how to speak the language of the individual that you're talking to get to a resolution. And I think about that because as I talk to my siblings every day, I realize that the way that I talk to my eldest sister is different from the way that I talk to my brother, which is different from the way that I talk to my sister that's 3 years older than me. Like, all of us talk every day, but our language that works best for us is totally different. And that's fine. But I learned that from my mom because the way that she talks to me is maybe different from the way now that she talks to my brother. It's just different, but it's important. And my mom taught me so many more things. My mom taught me the importance of having a relationship with Jesus. She taught me the importance of prayer, the importance of knowing who you serve, the importance of really letting God have your worry. Because when you stress and worry and are doubtful, it shows up in your body. Stress shows up in your body. It shows up in your back. It shows up in your shoulders. It shows up in your neck. It shows up in your leg. It shows up. The body is meant to give you cues of what is going on. My mom taught me to pay attention to the sign. My mom also taught me to drive fast. She taught me how to drive fast. And then when she drives with me, she's like, "Oh, girl, you driving that?" I'm like, "Yeah, you taught me." But my mom taught me so many things, and she's still teaching me so many things, even in my adulthood. Now, being a mother of two, I am learning so many things about life and her and what I need to do to be the best mom that I could be for my children, and how my mom really did the best she could. And I think that that is a level of grace that some of us don't give or extend. And I'm not talking about parents that were abusive or negligent or anything like that. I cannot speak to that experience, and I don't want to invalidate anybody's experience. But for me and where I am coming from, I had to learn to give my mom grace because my mom did the best that she could do. There's no doubt in my mind where there's no doubt in my mind about that. And sitting here saying that, I think it's helped me a lot because I think that as a woman who is a mother, at one point in my life, I was just like, I just don't get it. I don't get why my relationship is like this with my mom. And I see it now as an adult. I see it now as a woman that being a mother is hard. Being a mother is hard because it changes you. Not in a bad way, and I'm not saying this as a bad thing at all, but it really changes you because your focus, your priority is your children, right? And when I was younger, really could not imagine extending my mom grace because I'm like, I had this expectation of what a mother was supposed to be, all of those things. And it was not till I went to therapy, it was not until I had two toddler children who have their own little minds, their own thoughts, their own visions, dreams, intentions of life, all of those things, that I realized that my mom is not just a mom, she's a woman. And I think about when I told my husband, like, hey, I know you are okay with me being a stay-at-home wife, mom. I'm not. I would like to go back to work because I need in the most unselfish way, I need my life. I need a piece of Keiara that is filled with the passion and focus of a profession that I have dreamed of going to school for, and a passion that I don't want to extinguish the fire of. And my husband was totally on board, and he was like, absolutely. Yep, let's do it. Whatever will make you your best, let's do it. And I think about that from my mom, like I get it because I knew I needed to go back to work, not to escape anything, but to show my children that you can be a hands-on present parent while still achieving the goals and the dreams that God set before you. And so once I went through that, I realized how much more grace that I needed to extend to my mom from the experiences that we had growing up. And sometimes I even have to catch myself now of saying like, hey, my mom did what she knew she could or what she thought she could do. And that is what it is. I can't go back and erase anything. My mom can't either. And I don't want her to. But what I will say is that it has helped me to be the woman that I am today. And I would be remiss to talk about what my mother taught me without appreciating and acknowledging my eldest sister, who is 13 years older than me. I call her my sister mom, and how she was the trailblazer for our family, one of the first people in our entire family who attended and completed their 4-year degree and to obtain a master's degree. And so she was the forerunner for me. She was the trailblazer in my life. She was, the trendsetter, all of the things. And so I am exponentially grateful to my sister for all that she's accomplished, the example that she's laid for me, what she continues to show as a mother, as a wife, her support, her nurturing spirit, all the things that she's learned over time, not just through lessons that our mom taught us, but also through therapy and counseling, all these other things, books, and just discernment that God has given her to see things from a different perspective, and just her ability to parent my niece and nephew the way that she is and has. It's been mind-boggling to see and to experience. And so I just really learned so much from my sister and from my mom. But I'm just so grateful for not just my sister and my mom, but for the women in my life that have helped me to be the woman that I am today. I am grateful. I stand on the shoulders of so many women before me that blazed the trail before me in order for me to be the community leader, the activist, the community developer, all of those things that I am today. I'm just grateful and I am thankful, and I'm just honored to do this podcast and to be a voice for other people so that they know that they don't have to be silent. So if you like this video or others like it, I would ask for you to like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and share it with someone that you know. Okay? Thank you all for getting me over 100 subscribers. I'm just so amazed at your support, and I am thankful for what God has done and what He is doing. And without further delay, and remember that the only one stopping you is you. See you soon.